En las costas pacífica y Caribe de Colombia.
On the Pacific and Caribbean coasts of Colombia, shrimp trawling and other types of fishing, both industrial and leisure, generate employment, livelihoods, and income for many people. However, in addition to the target species of fishing, these methods also capture other marine animals.
A esta fauna acompañante,
This accompanying fauna is called incidental capture or discard when it is thrown overboard without making use of it.
una gran parte de esta captura corresponde a peces de
A large part of this catch is made up of small, low-value fish and may include both commercially important juvenile species and other highly vulnerable species, for example, sea turtles, sharks, or rays.
o rayas. Este sistema de pesca ocasiona graves daños a
This fishing system causes serious damage to the habitats of marine fauna. When it is carried out in an orderly manner and is used effectively, it can help food and nutritional security by establishing an important food resource for local populations.
aunque cuando se descarta,
Although when it is discarded, it becomes a significant loss of food and income.
en el programa anterior conocimos un poco acerca
In the previous program, we learned a little about a project that seeks to reduce food loss and promote sustainable livelihoods through improved bycatch management and decreased discards by facilitating sustainable use of this type of capture.
la utilización sostenible de este tipo de captura, encaminando a las pesquerías de arrastre de fondo a practicar esta actividad de forma responsable.
By directing bottom trawl fisheries to practice this activity responsibly. The project has 4 integrated components: legal and institutional frameworks, responsible fishing practices, livelihoods, food and nutritional security and gender balance, exchange of learning and experience.
Aprendizaje y experiencia. Los países que participan son Brasil, Colombia,
The participating countries are Brazil, Colombia, Costa Rica, Mexico, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. On all the coasts of Colombia, it is coordinated mainly by entities from the private fishing sector, regional bodies, NGOs, universities, and research institutes.
institutos de investigación. Visitamos uno de los lugares del Caribe donde la pesca artesanal de
We visited one of the places in the Caribbean where artisanal shrimp fishing is highly concentrated, the swamp of Santa Marta. A technology transfer exchange workshop was held there with the support of the Mexican government through the FAO. It is not an easy task to try to change the customs and thoughts of fishermen and inhabitants of the area, who from childhood their parents transferred these artisanal fishing techniques to them.
técnicas de pesca artesanal. Ellos son muy conscientes del daño tan grande que
They are very aware of the great damage that is caused to marine biodiversity, but it is their only livelihood. However, despite having so many fears and uncertainties of change, they are willing to try it.
dispuestos a intentarlo.
Nosotros utilizamos 2 paños nada más. 2 paños.
We only use 2 meshes and it is more practical. Its elaboration is faster. Here a single person in one day assembles one of these that we implement ourselves.
Nosotros venimos implementando. Aquí hemos metido muchas manos. Es un poco más difícil.
Here we have put many hands in. It is a little more difficult to assemble, but the idea is for a single objective,
De que todo venga funcionando como queremos que funcione.
that everything works as we want it to work, in the form of a good benefit for us fishermen, not catching so many fingerlings, nor so many small fish.
Tantos alevinos ni tantos peces pequeños.
Ellos están con sus redes tradicionales y nosotros estamos adaptando esa red tradicional.
They are with their traditional nets, and we are adapting that traditional net to some prototype nets. We are already in the specific phase of learning this construction, of the assembly of that net, changing the materials for some lighter ones, expanding the mesh sizes, introducing escape devices, and for the fishermen this is being taken with great uncertainty. They are interested, but they are quite conservative in knowing if this will work or not.
La hemos visto bastante difícil porque no la hemos, primera vez que la vemos, la estamos ejecutando, primera la hemos visto bastante difícil.
First time we've seen it and used it, We started working with it and we saw that it is quite difficult to execute, but as time goes on in its preparation, we get to know its dynamics more thoroughly in order to work with it, and we are sure that it will not be difficult for us to learn to manipulate the mesh. Since we live from this, we are born, raised with fishing, and we are in that apprenticeship.
No se trata de imponer diseños, sino el de adaptarse a lo que ellos ya utilizan.
It is not a matter of imposing designs, but of adapting to what they already use. This community, unlike the fishermen in the department of Nariño, they have a little more information because it is very close to cities like Santa Marta, where the only college is of fishing engineering. Then they have a little more technology compared to the fishermen of Buenaventura. They also have something in common, that they are purely empirical.
Tratamos haciendo en material de plástico, o sea, transparente.
We always treat the transparent plastic material. We are working on this material to see if we can catch fewer small fish, that the mesh is larger.
La malla es más grande, o sea.
Los pescadores a nivel mundial son iguales todos. Colombia, Costa Rica, en México.
Fishermen worldwide are the same, all in Colombia, Costa Rica, or Mexico. In some places where there is more relationship between technical staff and research people, there are talks that tend to open their minds and they tend to open up and accept changes. Here in Colombia, they react the same as they would in Mexico. I don't think it's different, it's the same. The fishermen will always oppose changes because they are used to one way and they are generally traditional.
No ha venido alguien a que le diga, mira, lo podemos hacer así.
Someone has not come to say, look, we can do it like this, or we do it like this, or it has maintained that way of fishing for years.
Cuando llega alguien,
that is their way of operating and prevailing when someone comes from outside with ideas. Obviously they feel threatened because they believe that one is going against their interests, but never us as researchers or technicians will we go against the interests of the fishermen.
O técnicos iremos en contra de los intereses de los pescadores.
Estos paños son originales, son japoneses.
These meshes are original and have their origin in Japan. The ones we use here are normal meshes. They are more resistant and of better quality.
Son de mejores calidad. No se deterioran tanto.
Since they do not deteriorate as much. The ones we use here are normal meshes. They are more resistant and of better quality since they do not deteriorate as much. This guarantees a good fishing gear, and one already knows that the meshes are to last a long time.
Cuando el camarón se siente atrapado, el camarón reacciona de una forma distinta al pez.
When the shrimp feels trapped, it reacts in a different way from the fish. The shrimp react with abdominal impulses between the tail and the head, and given the movements that these produce, around 60 or 70 impulses,
70 impulsos, lo cual puede ser unos 10 o 15 metros de desplazamiento.
which can be about 10 or 15 meters of displacement, and after this, the animal is exhausted.
Y percibe que va a ser atrapado.
The fish, when it is swimming and perceives that it is going to be caught, it can turn and escape. So these differences in response behavior to an attack between the shrimp and the fish help us to determine. So these differences in response behavior to an attack between the shrimp and the fish help us to determine the parameters for the design of a shrimp net.
Entonces lo que debo de buscar es una red que por su diseño.
What I should look for is a net that by its design allows me or allows the fish to escape, but not the shrimp.
Y entre camarón y camarón también hay conductas.
Between shrimp and shrimp, are also behaviors. There are some shrimp that are reactive, that is, they touch and jump. For this reason, the nets generally has a forward part called cien, or in some parts they are known as the skins. This is used to retain them when they collide and enter. There are other shrimp that are touched and do not react in the same way, and that shrimp is the ones that exist here.
Sí, ya estoy terminando ya.
Tenemos que ver que funcione bien, porque así como funcione, así la utilizamos nosotros.
We have to see that it works well, because just as the mesh works, we will use it, and if it gives good results, we have to continue working with this mesh, since we also have to think about ourselves.
Yo quedo contento, feliz. No solamente he transferido, he recibido.
I am content, happy. Not only have I transferred knowledge, but I have also received it, because it is not just about arriving and saying that we are going to discover the black thread, or that we will have the absolute truth. That is not true. We share with the fishermen, and we learn in that time, all these days, that we have been sharing and living with them.
Esperamos ya el día de mañana y pasado mañana comenzar a hacer unas pruebas en el mar iniciales para calibrar los equipos.
We are already waiting for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow to start doing some tests at sea. What we will do initially is calibrate the equipment. This is a laboratory at sea, and the networks are not going to work from one moment to the next. That's why we cannot fall into the confusing the fishermen either. We have to make sure that this is a job to learn and do in practice.
Pero bueno, o sea, me parece que hay que probarlo primero. Primero hay que probar, ver.
First, we have to try it at work, and there we answer that we can still grow with these leggings. We use a 2-inch legging because if I tell them we are going to use a 2.5-inch legging, it would not be logical to give it a maybe. It would not be right.
Aquí tenemos buena operación, habría que probar una con 63.5.
If we have a good operation here, we would have to try one with 63 meters. The problem here is that the white shrimp are bigger.
La expectativa es alta. Esperamos que estos nuevos prototipos.
The expectation is high. We hope that these new prototypes will reduce in a good way all the bycatch, but also convince the user or the fisherman that it is a way to protect the ecosystem, and that in turn they also benefit from the reduction in the costs involved in the job.
Dado en el caso de la reducción en los costos que le implica una faena.
Al comienzo era un poquito difícil por la armadura que se hizo por ser partes.
At the beginning, it was a little difficult because of the armor that was made, and because it involved several parts to assemble the mesh. It was difficult for us. In the end, with one of the instructors, we accepted their management plan of making the mesh.
El trabajo con ellos al principio fue un poco duro. Mostraron un poco de escepticismo en cuanto a...
Working with them at the beginning was a bit hard. They were skeptical about the new proposals, but as time has passed and we have worked with them, they have been included and have become interested in learning.
Tiene 4,5 kilos de plomo. El resto es la red.
This mesh has 4.5 kilos of lead, the rest is the net.
Hemos cogido esto totalmente como un desafío.
We have taken this circumstance as a challenge and also that we had to learn.
Yo creo que aquí falta mucha socialización.
I think that there is a lack of socialization here, a lot of contact with the fishermen because sometimes the word is convincing. However, it is clear that the example is more powerful.
Que la malla funciona, que sí va a pescar, que sí va a ahorrar combustible, que sí va a ser amigable con el ambiente.
In other words, I can come and tell them that the mesh works, that it will save fuel, that it will be friendly with the environment, and they can believe me. But if I tell them that and I go fishing with them, I'm not only telling them, I'm also showing them an example. I'm also showing them an example that this is functional, and when they see the example, they are convinced.
En el primer ensayo de la red, si lo vemos en el sentido general, nos fue excelente.
In the first test of the network, if we see it in a general sense, it was excellent for us since the captain's comments in this case is that we obtained only 10% of the accompanying fauna that could be had, and it also has the advantage that it consumes less fuel because the engine does not exert as much.
Y esto derivado de que el motor no se esfuerza tanto, ¿no? Entonces, en una cuestión económica se cumplió y ecológica también.
In an economic matter, it was fulfilled, and in ecological matters too. Now what follows is to take the net to a point in which it is much better for the capture of the shrimp, in this case the titi. That is the one we are looking for. That will come with some minimal adjustments. As such, the objectives were met in this first work.
En este primer lance.
It is dragging. It brings some snails and less specimens of small fish. It is working.
Probamos dos tiros de arrastres donde no fueron muy exitosas.
We tried 2 trawl shots and were unsuccessful. However, it did work with bycatch as fewer fish were caught.
Menos pescado, sí. Pero entonces la captura del camarón titi, que es el que te hablo del viento, el pequeño.
The capture of the titi shrimp, which I am talking about, was not the most productive. It is the one that we fish, and it is the one that gives us production. It is the one that generates the most economy.
Más economía.
La conciencia ecológica de la gente, por lo menos de la de aquí de la Ciénaga.
The ecological awareness of the people, at least of those who live here in the Ciénaga, is already awake because they begin to see that capturing species that are not commercial or that are returned to the sea is affecting them in some way. They have already started to see if there are solutions to reduce incidental fishing.
Incidental.
Oiga, esa res sí captura, hermano. Esa res sí salió buena, hermano. Salió buena. ¿Cómo le parece? Salió más. Claro, y el próximo más. Oiga, captura más que las otras. Mira el tigre, ¿cómo fue el tigre? ¿Camarón tigre? Ya se lo bueno, grande, pesando, clasificando y entonces sacando relaciones. Esto es eso.
They are verifying, and now they say that if I'm taking animals that I do not need, this is throwing away the distributional transformation. So there, they can also see the amount of accompanying fauna that they are taking and the cost of fuel.
Dado porque, bueno, quizás esperaban una captura más abundante.
Some are even still very skeptical because perhaps a larger catch was expected. They realized in the reduction in fuel consumption that it was quite a lot, and that also gave them hope. In addition, there is a slightly cleaner catch, and we did not have so much accompanying catch. It was also a reality that the catch of their target species that were shrimp. In that sense, they are a little worried that we are going to abide by the recommendations or the adjustments that they propose, and once again go to the field to demonstrate how this plan is working according to the adjustments that they suggest.
En el país estamos trabajando, al igual que con Ciénaga, en otras 3 sectores.
In the country, we are working with 3 other sectors, but what follows after these evaluations? Build some agreements with them on the use of the gear, to restrict some areas or to close the area for some time or period so as not to fish.
Encerrar por algún tiempo, por alguna época, el área para no pescar.
These are management measures built with their participation, and that will be presented to the National Aquaculture Authority and Fishing so that they take action on the matter, and they can be a controlled and manageable fishery.
Pesquería controlada y manejable.
Hay que reconocer que ellos son los que viven en el mar, son los que trabajan todo el tiempo con las artes de pesca, entonces
Recognizing that they are the ones who live on the sea and are the ones who work all the time with the fishing gear is relevant. We know that 50% of what is going to be improved in the network should come from them.
La idea es seguir probando y buscando esa, como que ese modo de pescar.
The idea is to try and find out how this way of fishing, this way of insisting, so that it is not bycatches. It is necessary to continue investigating with the engineers, with Indamar, and further implement the method of fishing to know if other methods can be elaborated and cloth or the mesh can be reduced to catch the shrimp that suits us.
Reducir la malla para coger el camarón que nos conviene a nosotros.
El gran reto no termina ahí, sino de que esto tiene que empalmarse con los aspectos legales.
The great challenge does not end there. This process has to be linked to the legal aspects. There has to be a legal framework consistent with these changes. Part of the fundamental change is the principle of working with them as a team. It is what is called in science fishing, such as management or congestion. It is the shared responsibility in managing the resource.
Esto es de mucha paciencia. Esto es de hacer modificaciones, ir al campo.
This requires a lot of patience. It involves making modifications and going to the field, evaluating whether or not it is working, and returning to us, and if it works, then let's move on, and this is trial and error.
Y calibración de redes de arrastre culminaron con éxito en las regiones Caribe y Pacífico.
These trawl net construction and calibration workshops culminated successfully in the Caribbean and the Pacific regions. In each area, different adjustments and experiments are still needed, depending on the type of artisanal or industrial fishing that is implemented. The project already has success stories such as in Suriname, a large producer and exporter of the shrimp popularly called 7 barbs. They needed to preserve the European market that required sustainability certifications. Thanks to recommendations of the program and to the fact that the fishing sector of this country complied with them, they managed to keep the European market.
En Centroamérica, Costa Rica también ha tenido grandes avances.
In Central America, Costa Rica has also made great progress, such as the Marine Spatial Zoning Map for the Sustainable Use of Shrimp, a cartographic document that facilitated the delimitation of marine spaces in which fishing fleets can carry out their tasks, and in those that are prohibited from entering, since they are conservation or research areas. This work allowed to create a balance between artisanal fishing and semi-industrial trawling.
Pesca semi-industrial de arrastre.